Okay, Unit 11, test review. All right, so we're going to write the equation of the graph and state the domain and range. Now, for this one, I know it's going to be a square root function, so everything is going to start from there, okay? Now, I can also tell it's been flipped because the parent function looks like this. So it's been reflected over the x-axis, so I'm going to have a y equals, or f of x, a negative. I can also tell that it was moved to the right all the way to 3, so that's going to look like x minus 3. And then it also moved up to 6, so plus 6. So my domain is going to be 3, 2, infinity. My range, though, because it's been reflected over the x-axis, will be negative infinity all the way to 6. All right, number 2, that's also a reflection over the x-axis, so I'm going to use f of x this time. There's my negative for the reflection across the x-axis. I can tell that it moved to the left from the parent function, so it's at negative 5. So that's going to look like x plus 5. And then it moved down to negative 3, so minus 3. All right, on number 3, this is actually going to be the cube root parent function. It's here at 0, 0. So on this one here, it's just going to be the cube root of x. And the domain and range of all cube root functions is going to be negative infinity to infinity. All right, on number 4, on this one here, the only thing it really did is it just kind of moved to the right. So this would be f of x equals the square root of x minus 3. All right, on number 5, and I'm not going to do all of these, I'm just going to do some of them. So on number 5, again, you'll notice that you have this negative right here. So that tells me it's a reflection over the x-axis. And the 5 here tells me that it went up 5. So my domain is going to be negative infinity to 0, again because of that reflection over the x-axis. And then the range is going to be from 5 to infinity. Oh, whoops. I have that backwards. Sorry about that. The domain will still be 0 to infinity. And then the range, because it's now been flipped, it'll be negative infinity to 5. All right, on number 7, the only thing that's been done is it's gone down 3. So my domain will be from 0 to infinity, and then my range will be from negative 3 to infinity. Now, for cube roots, remember the domain and range will always be negative infinity to infinity, so that'll be for number 9 and 10. Now, on number 9, it says x plus 4, so this one is actually going to shift left 4. All right, down here for the cubic function, again, your domain range is always going to be negative infinity to infinity, all real numbers. Okay, so now, if I actually write the function for this, it says it stretches vertically by 2, so I'm going to have a 2 right here, and I probably shouldn't have written that. Don't have enough room. Okay, it also says it reflects across the x-axis, so there's my negative. Translated left 5, so x plus 5. All right, for this cube root, it goes to the right 3 and down 4. So right 3 and then down 4. Okay, on the back, we're doing inverses. Again, I'm only going to do a few of these. So on the first one, pay attention to how it says x is greater than 7. So here it says x is greater than 7. So when I do the inverse, I do need to still pay attention to that. So this is going to change to y equals x squared plus 7. I'm going to switch the x and the y. I'm going to subtract the 7 so I can solve for y. Now I need to get rid of the squared, so the inverse of a square is the square root. So you have y equals the square root of x minus 7. Now you would also maybe want to write that as f of negative 1. And then do notice that this domain is the same as that. Alright, on number 14, notice I have a cube root. Now, these are the exact same equations, alright? Except that this is a cube, or it's going to be cubed. So I know that the inverse is actually going to be cubic. And see how this is a plus 7, then it changes to a minus 7? Well, this is a minus 2, so it's going to change to a plus 2. And again, your domain would be negative infinity to infinity because it is a cube root. Alright, on number 15, I'm going to change this one. So again, I have y equals x plus 1 squared minus 2. I'm going to switch my x and my y. I'm going to add 2, add 2. So x plus 2 equals y plus 1 squared. To get rid of the squared, I'm going to do the square root. So now I have the square root of x plus 2 equals y plus 1. But again, I'm solving for y. So I have to subtract the 1, subtract the 1. So I end up with y equals the square root of x plus 2 minus 1. Or I could say f of negative 1, x plus 2 minus 1. Alright, my domain here, okay, negative 2 to infinity. And again, pay attention to that negative 2 there. And then the range is going to be negative 1 to infinity. Alright, so number 15 and 18 are very much related, except notice that these are inverses of each other, the square and the square root. So they're actually going to look very similar, but this problem will end up looking like this one, okay? Just like this inverse looks like that, okay? So those are all related. Alright, on number 17, I'm going to do this one also. So again, I have y equals the cube root of x minus 4. Now, I need to actually get rid of the, I need to switch them. So x equals 3, and then the y minus 4. Okay, I need to add the 4 to the other side before I can do the cube root. So I have x plus 4 equals the cube root of y. Now, if I cube this, whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other. So now I have y equals x plus 4 cubed, or f of negative 1, x plus 4 cubed. Alright, on number 19, this should be enough to help you out on these here. So just understand, this has a square, so your answer is going to have a square. This has a square root, so your answer is going to have a square. And I might as well just do this one for you. So y equals x. Again, you're always changing that f of x to y. And then I flip them. And then I subtract them. And again, I'm not solving for the square root of y, so I need to get the y alone. So square, square. So y equals x minus 3 squared, or f of negative 1, x minus 3. Oops. Okay, and again, there's your domain. So for this one here, for your domain, it'd be 3 to infinity. All right, on number 19 it says, on a graph, the inverse function is a reflection over the line y equals x. The inverse of a quadratic function, so remember that's your x squared, is a square root function. And remember that one looks like this. The inverse of a cubic function is a cube root function. And that looks like that, and the cubic function looks like that. So again, they're inverses of each other. All right, on number 20, it says use composition of functions to prove the following functions are inverses of each other. So remember this one is you're putting each of them into each other. So if I want to do f of g of x, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this function, the f, and I'm going to put this whole g of x into just that x right there, okay? All right, so if I do that, I'm going to have x squared plus 1, so that just took care of the x, minus 1. And if I keep on doing that, I end up with just x squared, because that equals 0. And then remember, these are inverses of each other, so the only thing I have left is x. So if I flip it, I do g, and then the f of x. I'm going to take this whole g here, okay? I'm going to take this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this whole thing into that, just that x there. Okay, so what I have is x minus 1 squared plus 1. Now, when I square this with the square root, it just becomes x minus 1 plus 1, which just gives you x. So the main idea here, y'all, is make sure these x's equal each other, but also pay attention to this. Notice how it says f of g, g of f. That tells you just in that notation that they are going to be inverses of each other. Okay, and again, this is just for pre-AP. All right, let me kind of go back up here. I want to make sure we're okay with all the domain and the range and everything. Notice on this cubic one, this is still going to be your whole negative infinity to infinity for all of it. So everything will be negative infinity to infinity. And then on this one here, we already did that one. And then for this one, for the domain, this is what your answer looks like. So again, they already have the domain. It was this right here. Okay? All right. On the back, just back onto the front, if we just kind of take a look at this, I'll kind of help you out here a little bit more. So again, this is your reflection. Across the x-axis. This went right 3, and this went up 2. Now, if it went right 3, that means your domain would be 3 to infinity. And if this went up 2, that means your range is 2 to infinity. Okay? All right, I'll do one more with you, and then that's it. Now, this one here is tricky. Okay, it says -3. Now that's actually your k. We're more used to seeing it back here. Okay, so on this one, it's actually going to go down 3 and left 2. Down 3, left 2. So for your domain and your range, it's still going to be negative infinity to infinity because it's a cube root. Okay, I hope this helps you. Please let us know if y'all need any help, and good luck.